Every night shift worker knows that silence has a sound, that shadows have memories, and that something ancient and watchful stirs when the world sleeps, and only the flickering bulbs and quiet hum of machines remain as witnesses to the eerie hours between midnight and dawn, when reality bends and the veil between the natural and supernatural thins just enough to let horrors bleed through. It begins with Harold, a janitor at a hospital in Detroit, who worked the night shift for nearly 18 years, sweeping quiet corridors and humming to himself. Until one night in 2006, when he noticed a child in a hospital gown standing silently in the oncology wardroom for B, long closed after a tragic firing. When he approached her, asking if she was lost, she simply pointed to the charred wall and vanished before his eyes. A moment that sent him into a year-long silence, his hands trembling even when recounting it years later to a local paranormal podcast, claiming that afterward, every single night, at exactly 2:37 a.m., the fire alarm in that unused wing would blare for 6 seconds and then stop, no matter how many times it was checked or rewired. Then there's Maria, a 24/7 Steiner waitress in Albuquerque, who in 2012 began her overnight shifts to pay off school loans and found herself serving coffee to a man in an old sheriff's uniform every Thursday night at 3 a.m. He never spoke, always stared at the same newspaper, dated 1954, and left a silver dollar as a tip but when she mentioned him to a coworker. The blood drained from their face as they explained that was Sheriff McAllister, who'd died in a robbery right outside the diner in 1954 and was buried with his badge, his uniform, and a silver dollar in his pocket. Or Jeremy, a parking lot attendant in a remote Oregon rest stop, who heard whispers over the intercom on a stormy night in 2019. Voices repeating the word down over and over until the signal snapped, and when he checked the security feed, the cameras all glitched to static except one showing a woman crawling on all fours in reverse, her limbs bending in impossible angles, her face blank where features should be, circling his booth as though waiting for the power to fail, which it did 2 minutes later, plunging him into total blackness and the sound of nails dragging along the glass. Or the young overnight stalker at a 24-hour supermarket in Pennsylvania, who noticed a man in a long coat and top hat lingering in aisle 7 between 314 and 318. Every morning always vanishing when approached, always facing a way bet. One night the man turned, revealing hollow sockets where eyes should have been, and a mouth filled with long, yellowed teeth, gnashing like scissors. And from then on, every product stocked in aisle 7 would be found torn or chewed by morning. Or the security guard at an abandoned mall in Ohio, who was paid handsomely to patrol its dark corridors overnight after reports of kids breaking in. But what he found instead were mannequins that moved positions between rounds, a girl in a red dress appearing on the third-floor stairwell, who sang lullabies in reverse. And one night, surveillance showed him sleeping at his post, while another version of him walked through the halls, stopping at each camera to stare directly into it, before vanishing into the elevator shaft that had been sealed for over a decade. Or the nurse in a retirement home, who swore the mirrors in the East Wing began showing reflections of long-dead residents each time a new patient was within a day of dying. And once, while checking a cold, motionless patient for vitals, she saw, in the mirror behind her, an elderly woman standing with her hands on her shoulders, whispering, "Let her go." Though no one else was in the room, or the man who worked the graveyard shift at a gas station along Route 66, who claimed a woman in a white dress came in every night, drenched in rain despite clear skies, asking for a matchbook, she said. She left in 1978, and when he finally gave her one, she smiled, said, "Thank you. Now he can't follow me," and walked into the night, never to be seen again. But the next night, a figure with hollow eyes and burned skin began appearing in the windows, silently watching until dawn. Or the casino floor cleaner in Vegas, who mopped the floors between 2 and 6 a.m. and began hearing slot machines pay out in the empty building. only to find tokens melted into ash and an old man's laughter echoing from the high rollers lounge, though no one had entered it since 1999 after a gambler shot himself in front of the roulette table. His ghost, now rumored to play every night, hoping to win the bet that cost him his soul. Or the subway operator in New York, who told of the ghost train that occasionally passed by on a long abandoned track between 2nd and 3rd Avenue. Lights on, empty cars rattling by at full speed, and a conductor with no face seen in the reflection of tunnel puddles waving a slow goodbye, always before the station lights flickered and the rats disappeared as if hiding from something older than the tunnels themselves. Or the overnight librarian at a university in Maine who swore the restricted section would smell like smoke around 3:33 a.m. And sometimes she'd find ancient books on the floor, opened to pages containing names of current students who'd been reported missing days later. Each disappearance followed by the sound of scratching beneath the basement floorboards and a soft, raspy breathing echoing from the ventilation ducts above the restricted shelves. Or a warehouse worker in Tennessee who clocked in at midnight and claimed that every Thursday, one box would arrive with no labels or paperwork, always warm to the touch and pulsing slightly as though something inside was breathing. And once, he opened one to find a small, human-like hand pressed against the interior before the box snapped shut on its own. And after that, the deliveries never stopped even. After he quit, they began arriving at his home, always on Thursdays. Or the call center employee in Seattle, who handled graveyard emergency hotline shifts, and received a call one night from a girl screaming she was trapped in a red room, the walls covered in eyes and the floor in teeth. But when she asked for the address, the call glitched and repeated the phrase "he's watching you breathe" over and over in her own voice. And the number was traced to a disconnected line from a house that burned down in 1994 with a child still inside. Or the long-haul trucker who drives from coast to coast and says the worst stretch is through the Arizona desert, where time distorts, headlights bend backward, and he once saw a child standing alone at mile marker 142 who appeared in his rear view mirror for 4 hours, getting closer each time he blinked, only to vanish completely the moment the sun rose, and a thick, dark handprint remained imprinted on the inside of his windshield, where no one else could have reached. Or the cleaner at a funeral home who heard coffins opening themselves at night and footsteps behind him whenever he turned away from the embalming room mirror, and once saw his own reflection blink after he'd already turned around, its mouth moving silently before matching his expression once more. And perhaps the most chilling tale of a man named Darren who worked alone at a server farm in Colorado, deep underground, with rows of machines humming into the darkness, and began receiving emails from himself dated years into the future. His death, his screams, the thing in the ventilation ducts, and one final email sent 2 minutes before the security feed showed him vanish mid-step, his chair spinning slowly as if someone unseen had just stood up. And now, according to staff, every year, on the anniversary of his disappearance, the servers run 1.4 colder, and the last email in his inbox gets resent with one additional line. He's learning your passwords now. These are just a few of the countless night shift horror stories whispered by those who work while the rest of the world sleeps. Their tales dismissed as exhaustionations, but the pattern remains too consistent, too widespread, too exact in its detail across decades and locations, suggesting perhaps a deeper truth, that something ancient and unknowable watches the night shift workers, drawn to their isolation, their silence, and their proximity to the edge of the human world, a truth too terrifying for daylight to reveal. And if you ever find yourself working alone, long past midnight, pay close attention to the shadows, the silence, and the clock back, as they say, when the time reads 3:33 a.m., you're not really alone anymore. If you've ever worked a night shift, you know it's more than just the quiet hours that get to you. It's what moves in the silence when no one else is watching. If you've experienced something strange, eerie, or unexplainable during a late night shift, Share your story in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more chilling tales from the shadows. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and remember some things are only seen after midnight.